Well, can you tell me about the Peter Grace thing?
Thanks for tuning in to WilmsFront. Visit broadcasting from the Unshackled Studios in Melbourne. This is WilmsFront, brought to you by the Unshackled.net. Now here's Tim Wilms.
Hello everyone and welcome to tonight's show. The date is Sunday the 15th of December 2019. It is 7:45 here in Melbourne and it is 6:45 p.m. in Brisbane. We are live on the Tim Wilms YouTube channel, but for the second show in a row there is no entropy link because it says the Google console doesn't recognize it. So I just wonder with this YouTube terms of service update whether they've sort of been on more alert about how people they've demonetized or are not monetized are earning an income through YouTube, but not their payment going through Google, because of course entropy is the YouTube enhancement software which allows you to send through super chats which Google does not get a cutoff. And of course entropy supports free speech. They've never deplatformed anyone. I noticed that Matty on his live stream last night on his Matty Rose live channel was still able to use entropy, but I can't get it working here, which is interesting. I'll have to send the people an email to see what Google tricks are being played. But you can watch this stream also over at dlive.tv/Tim Wilms because dlive is the blockchain based free speech live streaming platform. And it also, you can support this show over there by sending through lemons, which is the currency of DLive, and we've been getting quite a few lemons throughout the past two shows, which WilmsFront has been streaming to DLive. So I'll put the link in the chat very shortly, so you can join us over there. And if you can't send us super chats through entropy, then please give us a lemon. Now, obviously, the main story in the world is still the euphoria from the Conservative supermajority victory in the UK general election, which took place on Thursday UK time, and we got the results in Friday lunchtime. The Uncackables did a special live stream during Friday afternoon. Australian time as the results came in, but it was pretty clear from the exit poll and the early declaration results that the Conservatives were going to handsomely win. Boris Johnson is now a Tory hero. He's got the greatest Conservative majority since Margaret Thatcher in 1987, and he can finally get Brexit done. The socialism and globalism of the Labour Party, which was under the leadership of Jeremy Corbyn, also heavily influenced by the Blairite globalists, who, even though they did not support his leadership, they still had a big say in getting Jeremy Corbyn to promise a second referendum on Brexit. So this mixture of old socialism and globalism was rejected in the Labour Party's traditional working class heartlands in the north of England, and the Antifa, who, and also the Extinction Rebellion, who have also overtaken London over the past few months, once again showed their disdain for democracy and their totalitarian nature, protesting in the streets of London, saying resist Tory rule, and have blamed the ignorance and racism of the old people. I'm not sure if they're actually had a look at the demographic breakdown of the vote, but they've said it's the old people who voted Tory who have stolen their future. And so and they have also blamed Rupert Murdoch's two newspapers in the UK, the Sun and the Times, for causing for brainwashing the masses to vote for the Tories. But it is they, the Antifa, assisted by the rest of the mainstream media and the institutional propaganda, who have failed in their attempt to brainwash the masses. It turns out the working class and the ordinary people can think for themselves. Now, Boris Johnson, he can go for a maximum of 5 years in the next House of Commons and UK Parliament. He just needs to now implement the policies supported by the people who voted for him, and not cut to the losers who are ranting and raving against his election victory. But a secondary issue or development that has emerged from the UK election result has been the rise in nationalism, or would you say regional ethnic nationalism in the United Kingdom, with the Scottish National Party winning big in the Scottish constituencies, and their First Minister Nicola Sturgeon is now demanding a second independence referendum, because the Scottish people voted to remain in the European Union. And so Nicola Sturgeon has argued that Boris Johnson has no mandate to force Brexit on the Scots, and that the union between England and Scotland, which has been in place for over 300 years, she says they're now going in different directions. And Sinn Féin in Northern Ireland, the Irish Republican Nationalist Party, they won more seats than the Democratic Unionist Party. And so this is going to be the next challenge for Boris Johnson after Brexit. Is they're going to be break up, because the full name of Boris Johnson's Conservative Party is the Conservative and Unionist Party, and so their natural inclination is to resist the breakup of the union. Now, the reason we are going to air 15 minutes later than I promoted, and we actually started 45 minutes later than the normally scheduled start of WilmsFront programs, which is 7 p.m. Melbourne time, is because my co-host for tonight, Martin Hartwig, when he logged onto his computer, there was a Windows update, and then there was a Skype update, but he's here now, and I'm actually, I've got a surprise for him right now. I'm going to introduce him as our new deputy editor of the Unshackled, Martin Hartwig. Congratulations.
Oh, deputy editor, huh?
Yes, because you've been very proactive. Well, not just writing content on the Unshackled, but also doing a lot of the back end stuff, which I've been at, and which has helped me out greatly. So you've certainly earned it, helping me out quite a bit, and also answering messages and other feedback when I've been unavailable too.
I appreciate that. Yes, I have been, as they say, on my grind. So yeah, I'm trying my best to get us to the next level and overcome all of the censorship issues, and yeah, let's hope we have a long and bright future ahead for TU.
Yeah. So do you accept my proposal is the question.
Sure. Yes.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
I just updated my bio today to say that I'm the SEO, but now I can put deputy editor. Nice.
So congratulations, Martin. Now,
Thank
you were listening to my intro, and you know how
Yes.
entropy works, and that's curious, isn't it?
I'm not too familiar with how entropy works, to be honest, but that is interesting because it has worked in the past. So who knows? There could have been mass reporting. We'll have to do a bit of investigating before we start pointing fingers, though.
Well,
yes.
we already know that YouTube's terms of service, it's claimed a few channels.
Yeah, look, DLive could be the future of our live broadcasts. This is the thing, like you said, I don't know if it was the last episode, you're saying it's basically whack-a-mole. If you strike us down, we shall become more powerful than you ever imagined.
Well, what either happens is that you end up with a far-right figure who is more radical than the one you censored, or the other thing can happen is the one you censored becomes more radical. So
yeah, I don't know about more radical necessarily, but certainly more savvy and more ruthless.
I'm not sure if you've been watching much of Milo's content on freespeech.tv, his show Friday nights are all right, but he's definitely, I would say, more radical now, and he did his recent big interview with Nick Fuentes, which he was advised 2 years ago not to do. He took that advice 2 years
How times
ago.
have changed.
Yeah, so he apologized for not interviewing Nick a couple of years ago.
Yeah, it's funny how the things change like that. Milo's been so punished for his moderate and playful nature that I wouldn't blame him for being a little bit kind of middle finger to the wind in his attitude. All I've seen of him lately is just him posting tongue-in-cheek selfies on his Telegram, but you know, he's got a bit of a sense of humor, and you have to be in this sort of thing, or else it would be get too black-pilling.
Because he's banned from Facebook and Twitter. I have some good news that Facebook has left me and the Unshackled alone since I did 2 posts mentioning he who is not allowed to be named on Facebook nor his face shown.
Yes, Blake. What do you refer to him now as?
Oh, well, that's...
Yeah.
I was able to show a photo of Blake Farron on Facebook. Nothing happened there.
I don't know. I mentioned to you I'm trying to commission an anime artist that I know to do a little cartoon image. I wonder if that would make it through the censorship. I want to do a test somewhere and Kawaii Blake.
But I've noticed that other people are allowed to mention the name of the person who Blake is based on Facebook because they
preface it with all of the various negative things. Yeah.
That's what I need to do, it seems, to
disavow. No, that's not going to happen.
Mm.
But yeah, no, it's I just put BC now, so
Which could mean, well, anything.
Could mean anything. But y'all motherfuckers know who I'm talking about.
Now, obviously, I would say the vocal majority were pleased with the UK general election result. Boris can now fulfil his promise, which is to get Brexit done. But the Antifa, which is they claim they're not a official organisation, even though they somehow have branches in every city around the world. They've launched protests in London. They've tried to make it violent, but the police have been onto them because, of course, when people respond to Antifa with counterforce, then their sort of limp wrists can't really handle it. They've been chanting "Not My Prime Minister" and "Resist Tory rule." I'm sorry, but Boris Johnson, if you are a citizen of the United Kingdom, he is your Prime Minister for the next 5 years. And of course, this is based on "Not My President" after the 2016 United States presidential election, where they started protesting the left, saying "Not my president," and they've also
Can you bring up that video of that woman crying hysterically, please?
You've embedded that in your article, haven't you?
No, I have not.
Oh, you haven't. Oh,
no.
You should have. Yeah, but you did write. Yeah, you did write an article on it.
It's done really well. I was
so I'll just bring it up.
Shocked.
I'll just bring it onto the screen here. Antifa and other rent seekers have taken to riding across London, picketing outside of 10 Downing Street. That's where the Prime Minister lives in the United Kingdom, to declare their dissatisfaction with the UK election result. Stand up to racism. Antifa and other, you've called them rent seekers because they're going to lose their privileges, and you've embedded we can still say his name on YouTube and show his face on YouTube, Blair Cottrell.
Just can't have him as the cover photo, but yeah, I figured that out.
Anti-fascists are apparently mobbing up in the streets of London, demanding an overthrow of the government after their preferred candidate, Jeremy Corbyn, failed miserably in the election, demanding an overthrow of the government. Think about that for a moment. Who are they demanding that from? Who do they think is going to do that for them? Imagine having been so hopelessly dependent on state and third-party institutions to survive your whole life that you think you can demand a revolution and someone else is going to rise to the task just to do it for you. Overthrow it yourself if you're prepared for the bloody terror, the actual revolution, which has nothing to do with safely chanting in the streets from behind the lines of a policeman.
Yeah.
And you've embedded some of the footage there.
Yep, there's some good footage from Andy No.
Yeah, and you've mentioned the "Not My President." There was a good meme where they're chanting "Not My President" to Trump, and Trump says "Not My residence."
Yeah, what was?
Oh yeah, there's Amy Ashley tweet. Fuck every single working class, racist, homophobic rodent that voted for that Tory cunt. Because
mask slips.
The reason why you lost, your candidate lost, is because you didn't call them racist, homophobic, Islamophobic enough. It's sort of like socialism, the ideology they support. It wasn't the right type of socialism. So we've got to try one more time. Next time we call everyone racist and homophobic, then that will be the right time. We just haven't abused them enough, beaten them into servitude enough.
Yeah, I think the last time they had revolutions, they didn't eliminate enough of the intelligentsia and the educated peoples. You know, Pol Pot didn't go far enough. That's why they didn't have proper, socialism, communism over there. I'm being sarcastic. All right. Anyone who thinks I might be advocating for genocide. That is not the case.
But going back to Blair's telegram, he's pointing out the fact that these groups get government funding through various mechanisms, because there are all these sort of legal centres and various community groups which have received various grants that assist them along, and of course they benefit from the media. A lot of it state funded, the BBC, and of course the intelligentsia, the universities in the UK, a lot of them funded by the taxpayer. So what do you go? And of course, who pays the tax? It's the working class, the productive class.
And if they don't vote how they want them to vote, then they just throw them under the bus. And the mask slips, and they go, "Oh, you working class! What was the quote from that? Working class, racist, homophobic rodent." Yeah, that's what they think of you. That's what they think of you behind your back, but they just rarely ever say it.
And Jeremy Corbyn has announced that he will not lead Labor to another general election, but hasn't had a timeline for when he is going to stand down as Labor leader, saying he wants to be part of the reflection process. I think he means the bloodletting and the shit fight that's going to occur after, because now it's going to be the Corbynistas versus the Blairites, basically because Corbyn he was a national socialist. He was against the European Union because it was a neoliberal globalization
that would have been,
body.
That would have been 20 years ago.
Yes. But he's been cucked by the globalist Blairites, which of course is named after former Labour Prime Minister Tony Blair, who... Well, because the British people, they decided that socialism didn't work after the paralysis in the United Kingdom in the 70s, with all of the coal strikes and the Garbo strikes, which left the UK with 3 days a week of electricity and steaming piles of garbage outside uncollected, and Margaret Thatcher deregulated, privatised and freed up the economy, and everyone got richer and thought, hey, this is pretty good. And so Tony Blair, because Labor kept losing, said, hey, maybe we need to move from socialism to social democracy. And Boris Johnson, if he makes it to 2024, that means that Tony Blair will be the only Labour leader who's won an election for the past 50 years.
Yeah, it's interesting to see some of the infighting making its way to the surface during like I said, they're sifting through the ashes of the defeat of the Labour Party, and some of the commentary is basically that the right wing of the Labour right were constantly undermining Jeremy Corbyn and the attacks of the anti-Semitism, because he was supports Palestine and the BDS movement, and I think he just likes supporting terrorists. He supports the IRA as well.
Well, he wasn't trusted on national security, because basically, I think he was asked by Andrew Neil, you basically take the side of every other group except the British people.
Yeah. I'm going to just say it. I'm not like a massive follower of UK politics. I don't know too much about what goes on with the parties, so I kind of want to stick to my comfort zone and what I covered in my article. I don't know. But if you look at the show notes, we've got a fair bit to cover. So
yeah, we'll stay on this, just looking, because you published another article today, and this is the secondary development, or you'd say consequence, from the election result, which is nationalism, because we saw in Scotland the Scottish National Party win big, and Sinn Féin in Northern Ireland. And so,
just real quick, just let me pause right there. In the comments, can you let me know what you think about the direction that I've been taking with the visual aesthetics of the cover photos? So I've been doing the photoshopping for that, a bit of glitch wave inspired aesthetics. So let me know what you think. I'm quite proud of what I've achieved. But anyway, yeah. So continue, Tim.
And I just want to bring up now, I showed this on the Uncuckable stream. It was a good photo that I saw on social media, or also posted on my own social media, the post-Brexit map, which basically shows the United Kingdoms of England and Wales in the red, Republic of Scotland in the blue, and the United Republic of Ireland in the green. And this is what I talk about once Brexit's done, because the new deadline is January 31, 2020. Boris Johnson said there's not going to be another extension, because some people are speculating that he might want one to sort of get a more harder deal. And it's been great that basically the Ramonas, who are basically trying every legal trick in the book to try and thwart Brexit, with the thumping win that Boris Johnson, and they have said that was his only campaign message, Boris Johnson, that get Brexit done. And that's what Jeremy Corbyn and his supporters have blamed the election loss on, is that it was about Brexit, the whole election. That's why we lost. Yeah. You can't blame it on our failure to convince the people of socialism.
Yeah, so I go into that in the article, and you can see if you go to the article and scroll down a little bit, you've got a couple of infographics, and you can go. I hate to direct people to The Guardian. I didn't want to just rip off their stuff, but they have a lot of in-depth analysis that we don't have the resources and the expertise to go into, like in-depth hard stats. But you can see over time how the working class vote has shifted, and you can see that the main reasons voters didn't vote for Labor. So you go, out of total people who didn't vote for Labor, 43% of them said that their issue was with the leadership, 17% said it was their stance on Brexit, and 12% said it was their economic policies. So, and Corbyn said it himself, I feel like we won, our economic policies were sound, and people supported them. The issue that really, it's like, well, they should have just respected the 2016 referendum in the first place on Brexit, instead of trying to churn through leaders and work against it at every stage. It kind of reminds me of the prolonged conflict that is the Trump impeachment process. They want to drag it out through the entirety of his what's the word? You know what I mean?
Yeah, they're arguing that they've got to impeach him so he doesn't steal the 2020 election, which means, you meaning that he'll beat you?
Well, they know that he'll beat them.
Well, they'll be looking at
it's easier than putting up a good candidate, because they know they don't have any good candidates.
Well, they do. They're just fringe or new candidates to the mainstream Democratic Party. The only viable candidate they have is going through dementia, sleepy Joe Biden. And even though he knows that he has this inappropriate affection problem with women and young children, he still talks about, I love children being on my lap.
Yeah, that was... he must be going through dementia or something. I don't know. Like, he was forgetting dates, and they're so desperate. It's kind of like a Weekend at Bernie's at this point. Like they're doing with what's that judge who's been, like, everybody's been speculating that she's been dead for like a year.
Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Yeah. They haven't.
I think they want her to be the United States' most prominent transhumanist.
They're going to have a head in a jar eventually. Yeah.
Yes, because she's got to stay alive until they get a Democrat president next. She should have really retired when Obama had control of the Senate.
Yeah, well, can Supreme Court justices retire, or they're in there until they die? I thought.
No, they can, because Justice Anthony Kennedy, he retired and was replaced eventually with Brett Kavanaugh.
I just remember how they whacked Justice Scalia.
Oh yeah, well, because I think it was Alex Jones who said that he was found dead with a pillow over his head.
The day of the pillow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was, the whole thing was fishy.
But yes, Trump was able to replace him with Justice Neil Gorsuch, who is just basically, in legal terms, a younger clone of Scalia. Brett Kavanaugh is more of a moderate, but that's when the left were like, oh shit, we can't let the constitutionalists have the Supreme Court for another generation, and so that's when Cassie Blasey Ford said that she was sexually assaulted by him. She thinks at a party back in the early 80s. And then, of course, there were other women who said they were sexually assaulted by him. One confessed that she made it up because she was angry, and then the New York Times said, oh, we found a guy who said that he witnessed Brett Kavanaugh sexually assaulting a woman, but the woman said she had no recollection of the incident. I think she just, the New York Times, they just believed she'd suppressed the memory. So Brett Kavanaugh should still be prosecuted for rape because there is a witness, but the victim, we just have to assume that she has memory suppression because it was such an horrific sexual assault.
The whole thing was so contrived, fucking bogus. Were we gonna move on to
yes,
I guess the Black Hebrew Israelite shooting?
Yes, because in the week that Donald Trump signed an executive order which would deny federal funds to universities that support the Israeli boycott, divestment, sanctions.
Didn't he also passed a thing about funding some ADL-linked, possibly ADL-linked group to combat anti-Semitism.
You'll have to provide more information about that. I doubt that Trump would fund an ADL-linked group, given that...
I don't know if it was specifically ADL, but I've seen him this week standing up. Well,
I think there's a conservative anti-Semitism group, Jews or Americans Against Anti-Semitism or Jews Against Anti-Semitism, because the ADL is a far left liberal Jewish activist group.
Sure.
And there's obviously a diversity of Jewish political opinion and views.
Well, there's certainly a lot of diversity. Like, look at this this Black Israelite Hebrew shooting. That was
yes.
I shouldn't be smiling because it's it's a pretty serious thing.
Yes,
it's a little bit tongue in cheek because these guys are pretty funny. Like you know the meme of the "that's right" of them abusing people on a New York street corner, saying that they are the true Israelites, and that actually the Israelites now are fakes.
A shooting in at a Jewish grocery store in Jersey City, which is in New Jersey. The perpetrators were two Black Hebrew Israelites. They believe they are the true descendants of the Jewish Hebrews. So they gunned down 3 people at the Jersey City kosher supermarket, and it was interesting. The mainstream media, they were all over this. Until they learned
white supremacy.
Well, it was a deliberate act of anti-Semitic terrorism until they realized the perpetrators were black anti-Semites.
I do recall seeing coverage from a couple of people who were saying that it was even showing pictures of them, the perpetrators, and saying that it was white supremacist violence.
I think we're back on D Live. Yes. We're back here. Can anyone in the... Oh yeah, we're back here. Yes, that was completely interesting. We're talking about, yeah, maybe YouTube didn't like us. Where were we at? Because we're now talking about the Wikipedia entry of the Black Hebrew Israelites.
That's where we were at.
Where it doesn't say they're black supremacists and racists, because we got a bit of introduction to the Black Hebrew Israelites, who nobody had ever heard of, earlier this year. Because before that Native American drummer started beating his drum in front of the Covington Catholic High School boys at the annual March for Life in Washington, D.C., they were being racially abused by the Black Hebrew Israelites.
Yeah, it was a bit of a... it wasn't a one group versus another. There was a bit of a three-group dynamic going on there. And the media at the time completely didn't even report on the Black Israelites. I don't think they would have been able to comprehend their existence.
I was listening to Ben Shapiro's take on this, and I know that he's copped a lot of grief from the America First gropers in the past couple of months, but he was spot on how the mainstream media, they only care about anti-Semitism when it comes from white supremacy. They have completely buried this story about the Black Hebrew Israelites being responsible for this act of domestic terrorism against this kosher supermarket. And Ben Shapiro quoted a New York Times op-ed where they say, basically, because blacks are more oppressed than Jews, we don't consider this a really bad hate crime.
Yeah, well, it's just like, I mean, when Muslim people attack the Jewish people, that's not considered an act of Muslim supremacy, or... Because there's not even a term for it, is there? It's, yeah, there's not even a term for that. And it comes back to the bullshit hierarchy of privilege. But yeah, I'm sure we've talked that issue to death. Yeah, so that was interesting, the media pointing and saying it was white supremacy when the perpetrators were black. So that's what I found very, very absurd and interesting about that. I guess, do we want to move on to the Russian porn ban real quick?
Yes, because in that same Ben Shapiro episode that I listened to, by the way, he also mentioned that
How can you listen to Ben Shapiro?
Because he was commenting on the porn, banning porn that was trending on social media over the weekend from conservatives, including from his Daily Wire colleague, Matt Walsh, who was... I basically interpreted Matt Walsh's sudden going with that... We're conservatives, not libertarians. The reason why we're conservatives is because we want to promote a moral society, and we already have laws that outlaw immoral activities such as prostitution.
Well, look, if the Groypers' pressure on the alt-right convinces them to go back to proper conservatism when it comes to these issues, then I guess something positive has come from it. Like, ideally, you'd want to knock them off the perch. But unless you have something designed to replace that, it's, I guess, a good concession is for them to wake up to themselves and realize that they're actually eroding their base by ignoring, conservative, I suppose, Christians, people that are anti-porn, pro-family, not anti-gay, but don't want to see it, necessarily celebrated or pushed onto school children, for example.
Ben Shapiro, in that episode, he said that he says, makes it clear his pornography. His second book was about the evils and damage of pornography, but he comes when it's talked about the government banning it, he comes from a libertarian point of view, that if you're empowered the government to enforce morality from the top, then that you're making the state bigger, and also giving the left the added incentive to put their own morality into legislation. But I noticed that Nick Fuentes has made the argument the left are already putting their morality into laws, so we should do the same.
Yeah. I've heard it compared to the war on drugs. So, like, if the government can't win a war on drugs, what makes us think that they would be able to win a war on pornography? Which I think is a valid take. Like, I think the argument that, oh, we can't legislate morality when law is basically legislated morality, that's fair. But I try to listen to all the opinions, and I think it's valid to say that why would we trust the government to be able to do anything right, and that if they do try to crack down on porn, I mean the UK cracked down on more extreme forms of porn a few years back.
Well,
actually, 5 years ago.
They attempted
no face
to.
scene? Are you kidding me?
They attempted to put through a porn filter where you'd have to show, like, it's been talked about, like, prove your identity, and the Home Affairs Department in Australia put in a submission saying there should be facial recognition before Australian internet users are able to view pornography. But this is the difficulty
That's going down
of
a dangerous road towards Chinese style.
Yes.
Internet.
And I noticed, I saw Paul Fletcher, who's the communications minister, on Sky News on Friday. He was talking about how Facebook is still allowing child exploitation material on, and he was indicating that he wanted the anonymity of the internet to end, and was...
They've wanted that for a long time.
Which is, this is the double-edged thing. If you crack down on internet porn, basically your the privacy of the internet is eroded.
Yeah. I think a good middle ground is actually strangely what Russia's doing. I don't think...
I'll bring up the article.
Because one of the arguments that they made is that pornography websites haven't adequately ensured the... I'll bring it up. There's a direct quote. They failed to protect children from, quote, information harmful to their health. So... yeah, so I think that's a fair point, that when you've got young teens exposed to it, it warps their sense of healthy relationships. And the argument that I've heard a lot, someone in our comments section was like, oh, you can't ban porn. Most of the people who watch porn are married people, and I mean, he didn't show any citation.
Well, it would improve that.
Married,
yeah.
If you're married and you're looking at porn, mate, you need to either, an extreme case, see a marriage counselor, maybe go and talk to your partner about why your sex life is dead. It could be you, buddy. It could be you that's the problem.
Yeah, I have the hypothetical porn ban would actually benefit their sex life, because that's an actual consequence of consumption of pornography. It's called, what's it called again? Porn-induced erectile dysfunction.
Yeah.
Which is it's proven that basically, over consumers of pornography, they can get a boner nearly anywhere except actually performing in the bedroom on an actual person.
The thing is, once you hit middle age, it's not like when you're a young person and you have all of that energy. It's not necessarily energy, but drive to procreate. Around middle age, that starts to drop off, and that's why you have the stereotype of, oh, we're married and we only have sex once a month. And if your drive drops off like that, and then you're using that limited drive to jerk it to porn, like, your marriage is going to fall apart. it's just going to happen. So yeah, there is definitely there's an issue there. We should be holding our women up and, you know, not deifying or putting them on a pedestal, but we should be admiring them and putting that attention towards them and making them feel special. So
we have got our YouTube audience back, but we went down on D Live, so I'm not sure if it was an internet disconnection or, yeah, what was happening there. I do know that D Live, that it does actually have also community standards as well against vilification and harassment, but
it's interesting because we weren't vilifying or harassing, but the algorithm
yes, and it also has a copyright policy as well, but Nick Fentes is able to live stream his reaction to the Democratic presidential primary debate in real time. He can't do it on YouTube because of copyright, but he can do it on D Live, and he can also
copyright is so stifling for creativity. I hate it.
And he can also dismiss Pete Buttigieg as a presidential candidate by just saying you're gay.
Is that actually how you say his name, Buttigieg? I thought it was like Buttigieg or something.
Buttigieg, that's a, yeah.
Buttigieg.
Yeah. It's quite interesting that the first gay candidate for president has the word "but" in his name.
Grow up. The next one that I had was Ricardo Bossi coming out. I think it was earlier this week. Made it very easy for me to do my job. He released a media statement. So if there's anyone watching, put out a media statement, and it makes it easier for me to do my reporting. If you want to get coverage. So, but anyway, I'm just going to summarize it here. He basically, without defaming anybody directly or referring to anybody directly, he attacked, to quote, vocally aggressive gender activists, referring to them as rock spiders for brainwashing children, and he also criticized parents and guardians for allowing it to happen, saying that children should be allowed to grow naturally into adulthood, respect biological science of what makes them boys or girls. He was talking about this book that was being pushed on I guess young adults, but I think it was like young teens that was being sort of promoted to.
I'll bring your article up here, because it's got the cover of the book.
Yeah, I kind of glitched it, so
Beyond Magneto, which is about a trans boy. That's a girl who's become a boy.
Yeah, it is what it is. But I think the interesting point of that is that there was reports that in that book there was a depiction of there's a helicopter going overhead. There's a depiction of from what I understand it to be to quote, graphic descriptions of oral sex carried out by children as young as 6, and they were depicted as having enjoyed it.
Yes, because it's a biographical book where it discusses they had a sexual experience at age 6 and they liked it.
Yeah, that's called fucking pedophilia, dude. You need to see a counselor. That shit's messed up. And he goes, Ricardo Bossi goes on to say, quote, "Is this the next step towards adding the P for pedophilia to the sexual spectrum, proudly boasted by the LGB community? In my opinion," this is his words, "this programming of primary school children is creeping pedophilia, and those involved in this indoctrination should be treated as the rock spiders they are." It's important that he says, "in my opinion." That's how you avoid defamation, folks.
Or I just say allegedly, or say I'm quoting someone else and this is what they said. Because I noticed that Mark Collett on an episode of Patriotic Weekly Review, he read out a super chat that alleged that Avi Yemeni had done something, and so Mark Collett said, "Oh, that's the super chat that said that, not me."
Jeez, yeah, no, haven't seen anything about Avi for a while, so
he's in Israel at the moment.
Totally fine with that. Or are they reprogramming him over there? Plug the little thing into his...
Well, he goes to Israel around about Christmas time every year because that's where he was this time last year. But he completely missed because it was another summer in Melbourne of the African youth gang crime wave, and that's when
got to come back to exploit that.
Yeah, Neil Erickson and Blair Cottrell, they held the political meeting at St Kilda Beach, which was, well, that was the biggest story of the month. That's when I remember the Unshackled website, it broke because our server at the time, we've upgraded our server since then, couldn't handle the traffic because we were the only outlet who weren't basically calling it a neo-Nazi rally.
Yeah, and we sort of had, I guess, exclusive insider access, which was pretty exciting.
Exclusive exclusive non-biased footage. That was the exclusive one, because
we actually showed like a solid live broadcast instead of a heavily edited, carefully selected angles to show, people holding their hands up to make it look like they were Nazi saluting.
Yes, and one of the guys did the fake mustache. Well, you've got the real mustache, so you could actually do it with a real mustache.
No, I wouldn't do that. But yeah, that was clearly trolling the media. But I guess that doesn't. Yeah, the media doesn't understand nuance like that.
I noticed that.
Anybody remember the dudes taking off with the generator?
Oh yes. It was like a sort of young teenager, because they were trying to blast music to disrupt the rally. They got caught at traffic light, and so this young dude just took them out.
Yeah, that's non-violent direct action right there. It's a little taste of their own medicine right back at them. That was good.
They haven't been active in Melbourne, the Antifa, recently, though they have been. I haven't
really seen anything
in Sydney, because they've been trying to free the Antifa convicted murderer in Bulgaria, Jock Freeman. We have to legally call him a convicted murderer because we don't want to be insensitive to his stabbing victims over in Bulgaria.
Yeah, absolutely. Who he has basically no remorse for killing,
no,
to this day.
Yeah. And
he has a good chuckle about it, actually.
Yeah.
Some of the footage.
Well, he was talking about in the exclusive ABC interview that, I haven't really missed much in my 10 years over a decade in prison. Most of my mates they're still living at home, not married, don't have children. Even though they went to uni, they don't have jobs which correspond with their degree. So we're basically
sound
in
like
that,
a bunch of losers to me.
We're basically at the same time, and he was like, yeah, he literally cackled.
Yeah, that sent a chill up my spine. Yeah, so someone wants us to talk about the Greta Thunberg, which is, we'll get to that after the Q&A thing. That's
we've already talked about the Q&A thing on the Uncackables, okay. unless you want to add your take to it.
No, I think Australia has spoken about how they feel about these vulgar women like this. She was very similar to what's that? Her name slipped my memory because of how detestable she is. She went and fled to the UK. You know who I'm talking about.
Yasmin Abdel-Magid. What's she going to do now? Because the people of the UK have voted in an Islamophobe as Prime Minister.
Where's she going to go now? Where's she going to run to? Back to Sudan?
Yeah, or she could go to maybe, Saudi Arabia or Qatar or Dubai or Abu Dhabi.
She could go to any of those places. Yeah. I mean, she's an engineer. She's quite privileged in that regard. She was given taxpayer dollars when she was working for the DFAT, the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade. She was getting a roughly $250,000 a year taxpayer salary. And she wants to sit back and badmouth us. Anyway, we've talked... screw her. Don't want to dedicate any more airtime to her.
Yes. Well, I'm glad that people power chased her out of the country.
Greta Thunberg, yeah. So Time's Person of the Year award has never really been a democratic process. I feel like they just have the vote. I don't see why they even bother putting it to the public vote. I guess they're just information gathering.
If only
2 years ago they had Khashoggi or whatever, the Saudi Arabian Prince Salman was like Person of the Year like 2 years ago, and they like butchered that journalist. So what the fuck?
There with Greta Thunberg, she's made an apology because she tweeted that we will make sure we will put world leaders against the wall. As she reveals, she'll be taking a Christmas break from eco-activism. Basically, I would recommend Greta maybe take maybe a couple of years off, finish school.
Yeah, maybe write her own speeches instead of letting ghostwriters put violent rhetoric into her mouth.
Because I can't believe she was allowed to be in that Q&A at the United Nations when she was just like, I don't know, why didn't you ask the other people here? There's other people here.
She can't talk unless there's a script, yeah.
Yeah.
But I would like to point out real quick before I forget that up against the wall phrase, that's pretty commonly used in like far left fantasies of guillotining rich people. And Lucas Roses pointed out Kathleen McLeod from Brisbane Anti-Fascist Action saying, oh yeah, we're going to put people up against the wall. So and then you've got that photo of her. I don't know if it's Photoshop.
Yeah, here's the apology she issued yesterday. I said we must hold our leaders accountable, and unfortunately, I said put them against the wall. That's Swedish. That's what happens when you improvise speeches in a second language. But of course, I apologize if anyone misunderstood this.
Yeah, I don't buy that.
PewDiePie seems to speak good English, and I don't remember there was many English misinterpretations of ABBA songs.
I've heard multiple interpretations of the phrase "against the wall." So there's a Radiohead song, it's "Paranoid Android," where he says, "When I am king, you will be first against the wall," which when I was a teen, I guess people didn't want to say, yeah, that's talking about communist revolution. Someone pointed out that back in the days when they didn't have sanitation or sewerage systems, people would just chuck their waste out the window. The streets of London used to be an open sewer, 100, 200 years ago, because people would just, chuck their bedpan out the window. So if you were walking against the wall, you'd be right underneath the window and be most likely to cop it. That's why they walked around with umbrellas all the time, even if it wasn't raining, because you didn't want to, cop somebody's bedpan on the head. But in this case, the person writing her speech totally knew what they were talking about. She sounds like a bit of an eco-fascist. Like old mate who did that stuff in New Zealand.
Of course, don't forget the original eco-fascist was Time Man of the Year in 1938, Adolf Hitler. Because you have to remember that Time Person of the Year, it doesn't necessarily mean you're a good person, it just means you're influential. And certainly Adolf Hitler and a few years later, Joseph Stalin won the award twice. The Ayatollah Khamenei, he won in 1979. So they were all certainly influential people.
Wasn't he a US puppet? Khamenei?
You're talking about the Shah of Iran. This is the Ayatollah who, the Iranian Revolution in 1979.
Oh, right, okay. So he was a murderous dictator, and they were just like, yep.
Well, he was the supreme leader. He wasn't he's the spiritual leader of Iran, because Iran has a democratically elected president, but has a supreme Ayatollah leader because it's an Islamic republic.
Right. Oh yeah, there was one thing I wanted to talk about. As you may have noticed, I've been ravenously consuming ice water, mostly because my computer's running and it turns my room into like a little mini sauna because I can't have the fan on. It would interrupt with the thing. So, but
yeah, that's probably why I'm constantly getting overheated here in the Unshackled studio, because we've got air conditioning, but it's because we're now streaming to 2 platforms now. It's really putting a strain on our computer tower, so we're probably going to get that upgraded and get a new cooling system in it, so it just doesn't basically overheat. And then there's also the lights on me as well.
Well, I might recommend, I'm going to put a little PSA out for our viewers and people watching later on. Queensland is going to cop it tomorrow. I don't know what it's going to be like down in Victoria, but we're expecting temperatures that are probably going to break some records. So we're looking at Ipswich, which is West Brisbane, is looking to get 43 degrees, and the record is 43.8. Archerfield, so that's like central southwest Brisbane, 41 degrees. And further out west, some of the bits are getting up to 40, 42, 43, 40. That's insane. A few years ago, I lived in a tiny little room in a share house. I didn't have a ceiling fan or even a pedestal fan. And I survived by buying a bag of ice from the servo, getting a laundry tub, putting water in it, putting ice in that, and putting your feet in that like a heat sink. So that's my recommendation to anybody if you want to survive a heat wave. And maybe that'll work for you, Tim. Keep you hydrated.
Well, I've got my drink here.
Yeah.
Because it's important.
If you see anybody walking their dog out on the pavement, you should redacted them, because I don't know, like you don't see people walking around barefoot on the pavement in those conditions. It just makes me mad
because dogs' paws can get burnt on the pavement,
and they're not able to communicate their pain.
Yeah,
It makes me mad when I see that.
Yeah, it's over hot dog.
Yeah. Oh, there was one little thing, addendum that I wanted to cover, and that is, we saw some coverage this week that there's a Singaporean company that sold the rights to it for 89 billion litres of Australian water rights were sold to a Canadian, I guess, hedge fund or retirement fund. People were talking like they're actually selling the water. It's the water rights. It's not the actual necessarily they're selling all of the water.
Is this Daily Mail one? Water restrictions for you, an endless supply for them. How a foreign corporation giant is snapping up 89 billion litres of Australia's H20 as the country suffers its worst ever drought. Well, it's not the country, it's New South Wales. People forget that...
And Queensland.
Yeah, well, I live in Victoria, and so as long as it doesn't affect me in Victoria...
It will. But yeah, I think what's interesting is that there's areas that are heavily affected by drought, where schools are closing down because they don't have adequate water. They're having to truck in water, and at the same time as that they're doing that, these commercial entities, like there's a place west of Brisbane, it's a station owned by these Chinese owners who live in Australia. They're trying to get approval to truck water to the Gold Coast for bottling. So there's trucks going one way, bringing water into these drought-affected communities, and then there's these large commercial entities that have been able to successfully lobby local and, probably grease the palms of these local governments to get these 100-year leases on these basins of water to pump it out and bottle it and sell it for commercial profit. Like, it's just insane. It's insane. If you think that all of this drought is completely natural, no, it's been exacerbated by just downright shit policy and frankly corruption. And it's disgusting. It's disgusting.
It's a Canadian, as you mentioned, pension fund that's buying the water rights, and it was owned by a Singaporean food company before. Well, at least it's not the Chinese, because the Chinese, they recently bought some of our famous milk brands, but they were owned by
they bought Capilano.
Yeah, but it was those milk brands, which is Pura Milk and Daily Juice and Big M and Dare Iced Coffee, it was owned by the Japanese before. But I mean, foreign ownership of a company from a free market country is...
It's not inherently bad, but the Chinese operate differently. And that's the point that I've been making.
Yeah.
People don't seem to understand that Chinese capitalism isn't really capitalism as we understand it. Like, it's drastically different to Japanese capitalism, to make a specific comparison, in that the companies that operate in China, for the large part, don't pay corporate tax in exchange for the state and the Chinese Communist Party basically having veto power over their decisions. And people need to be made aware of that. So, yeah, I think that's two big things that I'm interested in. You know, if you've got leads, if you've got story leads, send them through. Two of the big issues for the next year for me are going to be, I guess, still the drought. The drought's probably not going to... In the next 6 months, the impacts of the drought are going to be very, very real if it doesn't break. But the big issues are Chinese imperialism, our politicians from all across the spectrum selling us out to the Chinese, and ASIO's pointing out that it's bad. But you know, how many compromised politicians do we have? So that's a huge issue. And the issue of the 400,000, and it's well above that. That's just the official numbers. People immigrating to Australia every year whilst we're in a drought, putting stress on the infrastructure, putting stress on housing affordability, stagnating wages, and absorbing opportunities for young Australians who need to get these low-skilled jobs in order to pay their way through university and through higher education. These opportunities are being taken away by immigration. So those are going to be a couple of my focuses in the next year.
Yeah. So if you're because the young people who are protesting in Britain at the election result, they're for open borders. That's one of the reasons why they want to stay in the EU. After the Brexit referendum in 2016, they were out there the next day saying, EU, we love you. And after the 2017 general election result, which was a hung parliament, which shows just how much of a failure Theresa May was, that she sought her Brexit mandate. She failed to get one in 2017, but Boris Johnson in 2019 has got an overwhelming Brexit mandate. She had to go into a minority government, Theresa May, in 2017 with the Democratic Unionist Party of Northern Ireland, and there were protests at Westminster and outside Number 10 because the DUP was homophobic and misogynistic because they were pro-life and anti-same-sex marriage. Well, they'd be happy now because same-sex marriage and abortion has been enforced on the people of Northern Ireland. Basically because the UK Parliament at the end of the day can override the Northern Ireland Assembly because they created the Northern Ireland Assembly with the Good Friday Agreement in 1998, and it was around about the same time Scottish autonomy was granted with the creation of the Scottish Parliament.
Yeah, I have to brush up on my modern history when it comes to the British Isles. It's very fragmented.
Yeah, well,
it's not really the United Kingdom.
Well, not anymore. And this is the thing, that nationalism and regional and ethnic nationalism is on the rise, because we saw in the Canadian federal election, the French province of Quebec, they voted for the Bloc Quebecians. Quebec independence is now on the agenda, and there's also Wexit in the western province provinces, the prairie of Canada, and there's in the past 10 years there's also been the Western Australian secessionist movement. There is basically Catalonia as well, and this is what the Scottish National Party, they're thinking that if Boris Johnson doesn't grant them a referendum, they'll just hold ones themselves, which could potentially pit the UK government against Scotland in the same way that the Spanish government came in to shut down the Catalan independence referendum, where you've actually got Catalan political asylum seekers in Scotland who are avoiding extradition back to Spain to face the charges for daring to. But it's also interesting that how over in like foreign nations in the Middle East, Africa, or even in the Slavic nations, the Western powers, they support independence and self-determination. They supported Kosovo's independence, South Sudan, the creation, but for their own people, if Scotland wants to become independent, David Cameron basically, he interfered in that 2014 Scottish independence referendum. He should have been neutral, let the Scottish people decide. But they don't, and of course, look at how Spain reacted to Catalonia, and you have all these European globalists saying, "Oh, how is this will basically rock the Western economies if there's two nations." And
well, I'll tell if I could have some airtime on this, I do have some thoughts on it. If you look at European history going back, 400, 500 years before the French Revolution. Europe was a lot more fragmented and a lot more, France was probably the biggest nation. It was all kingdoms and principalities, and having massive countries like France and Germany is really something that's quite recent, and it's something that won't necessarily last. The thing with globalism and this just sort of putting everything into the melting pot is that a lot of these, like Scotland, for example, has a lot of mineral wealth and oil wealth.
Yes.
So they're quite concerned with money being sucked out of their country, and they're not getting much in return. And the same with Catalonia. Catalonia is my understanding, is quite well to do. So it's these areas that want to secede are generally where a lot of the wealth is being extracted from and being distributed to other things. There's even in Queensland, there's a secessionist thing. They want to form North Queensland, and because they feel like a lot of the mineral wealth is extracted.
But that's a new state within Australia. That's not seceding to create a nation. But the
mentality is there. The mentality is the same, and they're feeling like they're not getting the attention that they should be getting for the amount of money and revenue that they're putting into the system. It's the same as like people who pay more tax getting the same amount of vote as people who sit around and smoke bongs all day and not contributing. So, yeah.
There's also the state of proposed state of Jefferson in Northern California, because
California is the 5th largest economy in the world.
Yeah, but that is actually
I can understand
where they actually like do things of substance up. Like there's a lot of agriculture up there and they're much more conservative. But of course, Silicon Valley, which is you shouldn't call it a tech center.
California is a huge state and it's very diverse. There are oil-rich regions. They have agricultural sector. They have the technology sector in Silicon Valley. They have Hollywood there. They have massive import-export through the port of LA. So there's the economy of just California in general. Yeah, California could probably split. Certainly, it's. Kurt Doolittle talks about it a bit with the state of Washington. So you look at Seattle, and it's kind of like a globalist slum where highly paid tech executives walk past the heroin addicted, homeless people, and it's a left wing sort of high disparity in wealth, and then you go into the countryside and it's like a completely different country. And it's like that in Australia. If you go out of the cities and you realize, oh shit, the demographics are much different. It's a different place. The sentiments are different.
Well, in Melbourne it's a city now made up of 5 million people. It's an incredibly diverse city. Of course, the inner city is controlled by the extreme far left green socialist Marxist anarchist activists, sort of Fitzroy, Brunswick, Northcote, Collingwood. That's where they're sort of centered on. But where I'm based, and a lot of the sort of conservative and nationalist family-oriented minded people, we're in the southeast of Melbourne, around the city of Casey, city of Frankston, Mornington Peninsula, Shire. So yeah.
Well, I mean, we saw that in the UK election. Just to go back to that briefly, you saw that a lot of the areas that swung from Labor were regional areas, working class regions, for the most part, who wanted Brexit to happen.
People in the chat are talking about Daisy Cousins' recent video. I'll just look it up briefly to see what it's titled.
I'd like to get some of that Sky News money if I can.
Well, last time that, I'm not sure if I'm revealing anything, but last time I caught up with her was way back in September 2017 at Liberty Fest. She said that she wasn't paid for her Sky News appearances. I'm not sure if she sort of got a contract now.
Step up your game, Daisy. What are you doing?
But she would get to promote, like, being on Sky News. She'd get a lot of traffic to her YouTube channel, and she deleted her Patreon. She now only has a Subscribe Star. She does still utilize the YouTube Super Chats system, where
keep women out of the alt media, I say.
What about the new bird on the block, as she's been described by Tommy Robinson, Laura Towler? She made the documentary We Were Never Asked. Tommy Robinson, in his rant against Mark Collett and Laura, described her as some bird, and so on the post election live stream on Mark's channel, she had her name Laura some bird.
Yeah, I think the last woke female, I hate using the word woke now that I know how much.
No, that's banned. It's banned on this show. That's a banned word. How dare you? It's a
disgusting word. Enlightened. Let's just say enlightened. What do they call them? Conservative thoughts.
Trad thoughts.
Trad thought. The last trad thought I've seen with anything close to, I guess, some in-depth analysis or substance would be Lauren Southern.
Well, she's retired now. She's completely disappeared. And well, if you read Milo's last ever post on dangerous.com, he basically goes into why Lauren Southern retired, and how her production staff, Kaylin Robertson and George Llewellyn-John,
allegedly, wasn't there?
Misappropriation is I think a more less inflammatory term of Tommy Robinson's donations, and well, that was I
feel like there's a lot of that misappropriation going on, like anytime big amounts of money come into it, people just can't help themselves. Like,
yeah, and I can certainly guarantee all the people who have contributed to the Unshackled, this show, or other Unshackled productions, purchased a membership. It all is reinvested into making the Unshackled's production value even further. It's certainly...
when are we going to get some official sponsors?
Yeah, it's never been spent on flights, 5-star hotels, or any type of perks.
Can you buy me some Tommy Bahama shirts? With,
this water that I'm drinking now. This I purchased this myself.
Right.
So yeah, we are going to open up because it is end of year a Vision 2020 fund, because we do, as I've mentioned, we do want to make some more studio upgrades so you don't hear computer noise. And we also want to be able to improve our audio quality because as you see with when we only have 2 working microphones and headphones, so we're basically wanting to invest in a more high-tech soundboard. So
might have to invest in a better, more qualified sub-editor.
Sub-editor? Well,
that's me, isn't it?
Yes, well, we'll shall see how... You've been pretty good at we're picking up each other's errors at the moment, because
I haven't made any major gaffes yet. I'm pretty switched on, to toot my own horn, when it comes to knowing what is going to get censored. When you made a post about BC a while back, I was like, yeah, no, this is gonna be trouble, and it was. So yeah, we got to be really savvy. Got to be slippery as an eel these days.
Yeah. And with our Vision 2020 fund, not just audio improvement, but also visual improvements as well, because we are wanting. We're only streaming at the moment in 720 HD P, and so we're wanting to go full HD and also have a multi-camera setup as well, because there is a new multi-camera streamer as well. So
yeah, we need a high-quality camera, so high quality we can see the pores on your nose. That's what we really need.
So we're wanting to, we will launch that 2020 Vision Fund in the next 24 hours, and I don't think we'll flog it on Facebook, but certainly on Telegram and Gab, where our following continues to grow. Because even though Facebook has sort of shown us a bit more sort of kindness this week, definitely YouTube is not showing us, because I've noticed, well, we've seen our live audience over the past 8 months since YouTube's previous terms of service update happened in late May. Our live audience reduced, and when Maddie went live for his new regular Saturday night live stream, I didn't get an alert that he was going live.
Yeah, we could do some improvements on that. I was just thinking you could do a promotional video of you looking very sad, eating with your hands, with some very emotional music over the top, saying how hard done by we are and how we rely on your donations. Get Morgan to whip something up. Come on, Morgan.
Well, The Guardian, they have a... If you go on the Guardian, it constantly pops up. Take out a Guardian membership, and Wikipedia now they're asking for money. Maybe if you didn't turn out fake news, information, and history, I might give you some money. Wikipedia. I wonder if Infogalactic, that if they have a crowdfunding operation, I would certainly give money to that, because yeah, as we just showed tonight, Wikipedia, they don't call the black Hebrew Israelites racist, black supremacists, and terrorists and anti-Semites.
No. One thing I wanted to point out, have a little bit of a chuckle about, is our comrade from Yelling at Racist Dogs, Mr. Tanuki. His new word that he's learned is grifter. Andy knows apparently a grifter for getting attacked.
Oh, well,
he calls anybody who's trying to get any kind of money to do what they do is a grifter.
Yeah, even though Tom Tanuki recently launched his merch line and his Patreon.
Thank you. Yes, that is the irony that I was trying to point out.
Yeah.
He's calling and he's still calling people grifters while he's running a Patreon. And Slack Bastard has a Patreon.
We should maybe give Tom Tanuki a bit of a break because on Christmas Eve last year, a very unfortunate incident happened to him, which I think sort of scarred him for quite a while, because he wasn't seen in public, I think, for nearly 9 or 10 months.
Yeah, poor fella. That must just be terrible, It must be terrible. I wouldn't know anything about that, though.
Thomas Stevens is his real name.
Okay.
Yes.
No, yeah, I mean, it was very unfortunate what happened.
Yes, we wouldn't want to sort of remind him of this anniversary.
Of when he ran into a bottle shop and left his girlfriend high and dry when he was confronted by somebody. Yep.
Yeah, I know that if someone came after your lass Samantha.
Yes. Well, as I was copying shit for calling her my partner, which was very ambiguous. Yes, if anybody, I think they'd have to be more worried of her than of me. She's but yeah, the natural instinct is to protect, if you have any ounce of masculinity, is to protect your partner or your charge. But clearly he doesn't have any of those instincts. So
but so we'll have to investigate what is happening with Entropy, but I think the YouTube walls are closing in on us. So I'll put the DLive link in again on the YouTube live chat. Because we do want to get more people to come over to DLive. I was informed by Joel Jamal, it was on when he came on our Friday UK results Uncuckables election live stream, that even John Anderson, the former Deputy Prime Minister of Australia, who now runs a YouTube interview series called Conversations with John Anderson. He's interviewed people like Niall Ferguson, Peter Hitchens, Dave Rubin, Jordan Peterson. Even YouTube is shadow banning him, a former Deputy Prime Minister of Australia, who the point of him doing these conversations is to basically so we can learn how to have debate and rational conversation again. And no, that's apparently too much.
People have forgotten how to do that. I really think social media is a big part of that. You try to play devil's advocate and you respectfully put a point forward, and people just snipe, put ha-ha reacts. The extreme of that is doxing and whatever. Just have an open, I guess social media has really ruined good faith discussions. People aren't capable of that kind of holding two competing views and assessing the pros and cons anymore. Someone has said something. Okay, first thing I do is calculate what category that person is now in my view, and then treat them accordingly.
Gab, I think, does have that more mature, rational discussion, even though I don't agree with some of the views that are expressed on Gab. I'm not going to, cry, racist, Nazi, and revert to my safe space. This is why, even though lefties get 30-day bans from Facebook and get their YouTube channels shut down, they could never have their own free speech left-wing platform because they wouldn't be able to handle each other.
I think Tumblr is their equivalent of that. And oh man, that place.
Well, Tumblr is now safe for work. They've got rid of the furries porn and other forms of degeneracy on it.
Yeah, but it's not safe for sanity. It's one good example of Tumblr is someone is like posted a picture of some guy dodging some lasers, and he's like trying to make a joke on Tumblr without offending anybody is like, and then someone was like, oh, hang on, what are you saying with this? Are you? And then they made the point. It's like you can't even make a joke about making a joke without offending people, and like that's just yeah. Harden up, snowflake. To use a boomerism. Nah, boomers are some boomers are all right. I think treating the elderly with absolute disdain, you get the results like with the UK election. You can't. Yeah, you've got to respect.
Well, boomers in Australia, they were the ones who voted for Zali Steggall in Warringah. If you have a look at her campaign volunteers behind Zali Steggall in all of her photos, they're basically, I think the average age is 65 years old. They probably have their family home, which is not included in the pension asset test in Warringah, which is of course Manly, beachside suburb. They're all NIMBYs. They don't want anyone else to come and live with them. And of course it's still a very white and grey area, so they want immigrants to come into Sydney, but not where they are. And they also want renewable energy, but not. They
want their cheap lattes, is what they want.
Yeah. So Australian boomers. Yeah, they've screwed over a lot of the young by voting for people like Zali Steggall.
They've had it pretty sweet. But
and
there's still some gems among them.
Well, they did in Wentworth elect Karen Phelps for 6 months until they learnt that Dave Sharma was a modern liberal they could trust.
Yes. I won't comment about Dave Sharma. If I open my mouth, I'll get in trouble.
No, don't say anything about Dave Sharma. That's an order from me.
Great fellow.
Great local member.
Well, there's one thing I can say, and I thought it was hilarious when he was like, "Suicide is bad, guys. I'm campaigning against sadness and suicide and depression." Mate, you're in like the richest electorate. Now, I understand that depression cuts through, all wealth brackets, but like if you really cared about depression, suicide, and whatever, you'd try and create some opportunities for young people who are trying to get a foothold in the world, instead of bringing in, all the huge amounts of foreign workers and propping the banks up despite them. It should be said that the Liberal Party is the party of the banks, always have been. So while they might be a good alternative to the Greens and Labor, they're not, I don't support the Liberal Party. So that should be said. We just don't have a good alternative. Like, we had Fraser for a while, but that just turned into a shit fight, and now he's gone and flown the coop. So maybe someone was saying earlier, could Ricardo Bosey be our next Fraser Anning? Maybe. Hopefully he plays the media game a bit smarter.
Well, he's not the only party. His party, Australia One, is not the only party that's risen from the ashes of Australian Conservatives. There's also the Australian Federation Party, which is another faction from the New South Wales Australian Conservatives. So basically, Cory Bernardi's legacy is to basically bring all the Australian Conservatives together to fail and then fragment again.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what's happening with the alternative.
Yes, well, Scott Morrison, he's like, as we've seen at the end of the year, the quiet Australians who voted him in, he's still not doing the right thing by them. He's still not giving the farmers their water or standing up to the greeny bureaucrats.
No, all Scott Morrison is a he's like a bland manager, and he plays the daggy dad, similar to sort of what John Howard did. And there's this middle Australia that just wants things to be all right. They don't want to hear about all the bad stuff that's happening, as long as they're they're getting what they want. They don't want to hear about all the rest of it, how the country's burning, and how good's the summer of cricket going to be? It's they want business as usual, and that's what Scott Morrison represents. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people who business as usual is in 6 and 12 months' time going to mean them facing losing their properties and suicide rate spiking and the rest of it. So,
yeah, I remember he didn't even know there were gender-neutral toilets in his own department.
There's a gender-neutral little quick aside. I didn't really see that it was worth me writing an entire article about, but there's a new school opening up in Fortitude Valley in Brisbane.
Yeah.
It's the first state school built in an inner city for a long time, and they're putting gender neutral toilets in there. So let's see how long it takes before there's a scandal. Well, they'll probably suppress it, but eventually, 5-10 years time, mark my words, there'll be a whole spate of suppressed sexual
well, the UK is further down the rabbit hole with a lot of their new schools have gender neutral toilets, and girls are now actually not going to the toilet in school because they're scared.
Yeah, and if they're menstruating, they just don't even go to school at all.
Like I remember, I was in primary school in the early 90s, and yes, I remember a few boys got detention for peeping into the girls' bathroom, and rightly so, because you don't want a young boy to get into sex fiend habits.
I'm not laughing about that. I'm remembering back to high school. The girls, they met because they pulled everybody out of class and they separated us on other sides of the ball court or whatever. And for the girls, it was, someone had been smoking in the toilets. I went to an Anglican school, so it wasn't like state schools where they're just smoking and shooting up heroin in the hallways. It was pretty wholesome for the most part. But with the guys, it was they pulled us aside because somebody had created a modern artwork with their fecal matter and managed to get some on the ceiling. That's what they pulled everybody out of class for. So it's like the girls' locker room versus boys' locker room.
Suddenly, a banana duct taped to a wall suddenly seems a lot more wholesome piece of art.
Actually, on that topic, someone made the interesting point that the whole thing with modern art being just the garbage. Yes, it's to demoralize and destroy, traditional beauty and attack traditional beauty. If you look at Europe, in German bridges and whatever, like 100 years ago, the Gothic style stuff, it's gorgeous. Stone and glass buildings compared to steel and glass buildings are so much more beautiful. But modern art is a tax loophole for the rich. So the idea is, rich person goes, I need a tax break. So they get some chummy artist that they know. They pay him a couple of $1,000s to make an artwork, and they go, they excrete some paint on a canvas. Then they take that little piece of artwork and they take it to an appraiser who is in their elite circle of friends, and they go, that's worth $25 million. So then they go, okay, great. And then they donate that to an art gallery, and then the art gallery gives them their, that's their donation, and that's their tax-free bracket for the year. That completely, I hadn't really considered that before. I do remember back with, during the PIZZA gate thing a couple of years back, James Alefantis, who ran the restaurant Comet Pizza Ping Pong, was also in that little street. There was this weird art gallery where they had a lot of symbology on their website, which was shared symbology with the NAMBLA and all of that weird stuff. So there's like the connection between elites, pedophilia rings, and like high art circles. You look at Tony Podesta's art collection.
Yes, because I remember we had the debate. It was over a decade now with Bill Henson's photograph of naked children, whether it was art or child pornography, because the police confiscated it, but then the police realized that the law said as long as it's art, it's fine.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so big news for this week is going to be, what, the 19th, 4 days from now. Old mate Blake, or whatever, he's going to have his ruling on the 19th.
Yes, at 10 a.m. Melbourne time at the County Court of Victoria, Chief Judge Peter Kidd will hand down his judgment on his appeal against his blasphemy conviction under Section 25(2) of the Racial and Religious Tolerance Act for inciting severe ridicule, revulsion and contempt for Muslims. That was for the mock... his participation in the mock beheading video that the United Patriots Front uploaded to Facebook to promote their upcoming Bendigo rally against the application for the construction of the mosque. They did it outside the Bendigo town hall, and it was a dummy which red liquid came out. They've got to prove that he had intent to do all this, and he's also...
No, it was just a piece of performance art.
That's
all it was. It was performance art, political expression. But we'll see whether the courts...
Yes, because he's appealing on the substantive charge that the law violates Australia's freedom of implied constitutional freedom to political communication, and that it violates the Victorian Charter of Human Rights and Responsibility. Though having sat through the trial in 4 days, I learnt that we don't have individual right to free speech in this country, and that we've got to balance free speech with the right of multicultural peoples.
Yes, well, yeah, I'll probably prep an article for both potential outcomes.
Yeah, well, I can obviously feed you what I hear in the court. Well, the judgment, it will be published online as soon as possible after it's been delivered.
Yeah, it's gonna be big. So
yeah, and on the eve of that judgment, Wednesday night, WilmsFront, I'll have one of the other members of the Bendigo Three who was found guilty for that beheading stunt. They were all fined $2,000, but only Blair had a criminal conviction recorded against him. So it was...
It's not really about the money, is it? It's about the precedent.
Yeah. So the other was Neil Erickson, but I'll be speaking to the third member of the Bendigo threat, Christopher Shortus. So he's just finished another year of his law degree. So he's obviously, since his guilty finding, this has been on his mind, and he's certainly become quite the legal scholar and researcher. So it'll be interesting to see what he has to say, because he does argue that the law is on our side, but well, Patriots, first of all, they don't have the vast legal resources to launch legal cases, and the left has pretty much stacked the judiciary over the past 20 years.
When he's qualified, he should start a not-for-profit.
Yeah, I think that he's got that.
Secure some funding.
Yeah, he's got that in mind, and the Patriot Defence Fund, because the Australian Christian Lobby, where the Human Rights Law Alliance Defence Fund, they've been quite successful. They were able to take pro-life mother of 13, Kathy Clubb, her her fine for handing out pro-life material within a abortion clinic exclusion zone. She lost that case at the High Court because they deemed it a medical issue, not a free speech issue. But she was able to go there thanks to the Human Rights Law Alliance, which was founded by now Australian Christian Lobby Director Martin Isles. So at Kathy Clubb, she, according to the Herald Sun, she is also a far-right extremist because she was at the March for the Babies, and her 13 children, they were all white children.
Oh, that's disgusting.
Yes, so that's very
She's
extreme.
breeding the next generation of white supremacist foot soldiers.
Yes, I met some of them at the march. Are truly frightening.
I bet they're all really polite. Ugh, nothing worse. No, what was the other thing? Yeah, so Israel Folau is going to be back in court soon.
Oh yes, because
unless they settle out.
No, it's been settled with Rugby Australia, but now
no, this is a different issue.
Yes, Gary Burns, he's the one who launched the anti-discrimination complaint against Bernard Gaynor all those years back, which he's still fighting and needing funds for.
It's so messed up that these people, they have to. Lucas made the point is they have to make an example of Israel Folau, because if they let him get away with what he said, then it risks their ability to intimidate other people in the future. So if Israel Folau, with all of his funds and personal wealth, and the platform that he has to be able to crowdfund, if he can't beat this, then there's no hope for any of us.
I noticed that in the chat a lot of people are talking about cooking at the moment. I should... when I read the YouTube terms of service update on harassment, YouTube strongly advised us to have automatic moderation of comments, sort of hint, hint. So I think that probably YouTube is talking about those sort of cooking comments that maybe, if you want to survive,
it'd be nice
maybe
if people could do a bit of self-censorship and be responsible. It'd be nice.
But we noticed that Nick Fuentes talking about baking. That's still on YouTube, amazingly.
Yeah, it might be funny for a giggle, but if it ends up with you being shut down, then it's probably not. It's probably counterintuitive. So you got to pick your battles, really. We're trying to do something sort of larger here. We're trying to have an actual impact on the discourse in this country. So if people could keep that in mind, that'd be lovely.
I mentioned that we are now streaming to DLive. We are putting the archive of episodes up on BitChute, BitChute/channel/Tim Wilms. That is where I'm slowly uploading the WilmsFront archive. BitChute, its upload interface is still very slow, and also it doesn't do live streaming as well. It's on their to-do list. I'm thinking of taking out BitChute premium membership. Just basically, if I want them to improve, I should give them I think a bit of money as well. I'm a Gab Pro member, which it seems to have been a worthwhile investment because they've launched their Dissenter web browser and extension, which allows you to comment on anything on the internet, even if the comments are disabled on the platform. And I just got an email from Andrew Torber today that he is launching a Gab chat, which you'll be able to have direct messages, group chats. Obviously, he's wanting to maybe get a bit of Telegram's traffic on it. Andrew Torber, he is bloody... I think he should be basically, what do you call it? What do you call him? Patriot, nationalist, based person of the decade or the millennium.
And I've never heard of him.
Can we fed a Fed check? We have got a PO box if you want to send it to us. So does Gab and other things. So There are heaps of ways to support us because we'll have to investigate what's happening in Entropy. I mentioned we're going to be launching the 2020 Vision Fund. We have our web membership program at the unshackled.net/membership. We're still on Patreon and PayPal for now, but we do have a subscribestar.com/unshackled page. We have an online merchandise store, the unshackled.net/store. And of course, we are in 2020 going to be more active on Rational Rise TV. James Fox Higgins, he's been in the process of moving at the end of the year. James Fox Higgins show is going to be back to a daily show in 2020, and Rational Rise TV, where we're going to be streaming to all our content there as well, where you can also financially support all of us in the Australian alt media scene. Other Unshackled productions are, of course, The Report from Tiger Mountain, hosted by Richard Wollstonecroft. That's uploaded on the Unshackled main channel. That's also where you can catch Trans-Tasman Talk every Tuesday, 7 p.m. Melbourne time. And people have been wondering where Steel Archer is and detonation and transhumanism. That's a good question. We have not heard from Steel for quite a while, so we can't answer that question for you. I know that Port Film Co-op is quite a big fan, so I think Port Film Co-op, can you create some milk cartons with his image on it? Because yeah, we have no idea where he is. Maybe the transhumanists, they've kidnapped him and they're using him for some experiments.
Maybe they're forcing him to transcend. They're uploading him now as we speak.
Yeah, so, well, he has been disabled from Facebook, so maybe now Facebook has got the power to basically, because he's been Facebook killed, hope Facebook hasn't killed him in real life.
Yeah, no, I haven't. I was thinking about calling him the other day. I think he's moving house or something. So
yeah, if you've seen this man, please let us know.
Yeah, no, I'm sure he'll become powering into the new year. We know how prolific he is with creating content once he gets on a roll. I mean, what's he done already? Like 150 episodes of Detonation. He's probably consolidating his network of intelligentsia right now. Yeah, he's very high energy once he gets into the swing of things.
I'll do it next poll. Like who's gotten to steal? A, transhumanism. A, some government agency.
Hillary Clinton got to steal.
What else? Tomorrow night will be, of course, XYZ live on the Mehdi Rosenberg live YouTube channel, and I think he's streaming to D Live now. So that is always good value. James Fox Higgins, we know where he is. That's why there's no new content on his channel at the moment. I'm not sure if Dio Beltran is going to do another weekly live stream on her channel, 8:30 p.m. Wednesday. Of course, the Uncockables will be 8:30 p.m. Thursday on its YouTube channel and also on its D Live channel. That will be, of course, the first live alt media show since Blair Cottrell's verdict will be handed down.
You said the name.
And our special guest, we have got a commitment from Mark Collette will come on. We've managed to basically hunt him down and get him to come on the show, which is, I think, a very great grouse way to end the year, and also the year for the Uncockables, which started in March. It was just when the YouTube crackdown was beginning post the Christchurch massacre, but the Uncockables continues to grow over the Christmas New Year period. the Australian alt media lineup, there sort of will be a lot of irregular broadcasts. So please subscribe to my Telegram channel, t.me/WilmsFront, and also follow me on Gab, gab.com/Tim Wilms, because I'll put the notifications out there before I go live. It might not be at the regular time. That same goes for the Uncackables and other content.
Cool. Someone asked about the dingoes.
Dingoes?
I don't think they're a thing anymore.
Yeah, I confess I never listened to them. I never knew who they were. They've always been just a podcast.
I knew who some of them were. But yeah, I think they're probably just moving on to other things, or maybe gotten on with their lives.
Did some Asios ate the dingoes?
Yeah, there was probably a few doors knocked on. That was probably a part of it. I don't know. I ain't qualified to speak on that.
All right. I think we've done all our reminders.
Yeah.
So thank you everyone
for
watching.
Back to Dark Souls.
Yes, and we haven't had the stream interrupted since. It was just interesting when we were talking about anti-Semitism in the African American community. That's when the stream cut out.
Yeah. Interesting coincidence.
Yes, and of course people didn't mention that the anti-Semitism that was coming from Jeremy Corbyn's faction of the Labour Party. Who was it coming from? His Muslim supporters.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't even get into the fact that he's trying to juggle all these different competing subgroups that feel different ways about each other. That was also a factor that we really didn't get into. Maybe another time.
All right. Good night, everybody. I'll be back Tuesday night for Trans-Tasman Talk, and of course, WilmsFront Wednesday. Have a good Sunday night. And we'll catch you later. And of course, please go and see myself and Martin's work on the Unshackled.net. And for the archive of WilmsFront episodes, including the link to the podcast version of the show, timwilms.com.
Thanks for tuning in to WilmsFront. Visit timwilms.com or Rational Rise TV to view the archive of episodes. And keep visiting the Unshackled.net to view all our shows, and to keep up with the latest real news and analysis.